Warning, core systems failure, impact imminent. Warning, core systems failure, impact imminent. Warning, core systems failure, impact imminent.
I woke up to the smell of thick black smoke, my head fuzzy from the accident. I don't remember what happened or how I got here, but what's obvious is I'm trapped on an unknown ocean planet with basically no way for survival. All I had on me was a broken ship comlink, some empty maps, and some rations. Looking around, there was water everywhere. I spotted several rafts and floating debris which I could probably scavenge for supplies. So, with a deep breath, I jumped into the water. The depths were cold and scary. It went down for what looked like an eternity, and I could barely make out silhouettes of terrifying creatures. I started swimming as fast as I could toward the nearest raft and salvaged as much as I could. Wood, charcoal, just about anything that could help me survive just a little bit longer. With the wood I collected, I made my first crafting table, but needed way more materials to make anything useful. Meaning that I had to go back into the water, swim to another raft, and hope for more materials. The next raft thankfully had some flint in a small crate, and also some pretty cool leggings. It wasn't really comfortable, but at least it made me feel a bit safer than before. With the flint I gathered, I made myself a set of flint shears and used it on some banners to get string. And with the string, I was able to craft a bamboo raft, meaning that I could now traverse the ocean without getting into it. I also crafted a water strainer and started collecting different types of pebbles from the ocean. While the strainer was running, I decided to look around and explore my surroundings. There was a strange temple-like building nearby, and I even spotted a weird mushroom island in the distance. I decided to go towards the prismarine structure first and found a crate which revealed a spawner. There wasn't really much I could do to it currently, so I just left it for the time being. Then I decided to go to the mushroom island. Upon landing on the island, I noticed a barrel in the middle and decided to break it, revealing yet another spawner. This time, a bat-like creature spawned out of nowhere and started attacking me. Without a weapon, it was a difficult fight, but somehow I managed to get it stuck in my raft and dealt the final blows to this horrible creature. The local wildlife here was not to be trifled with. After looting a few more rafts and finding this cool axe, I decided to head back to my shipwreck to check in on the strainer. Inside, it managed to collect a lot of items, including some saplings, different types of pebbles, and some fish. While I was retrieving these items, however, I noticed a strange-looking creature in the corner of my eye. It looked like it was holding a fishing rod and was slowly sinking towards the bottom of the ocean. Whatever it was, I sure hope I don't have to encounter it ever again. Brushing that aside, I picked up the pebbles that I strained and crafted my first pieces of cobblestone. But I couldn't do much with it just yet. To make any progress, I needed to hammer the cobblestone into gravel and put it into a sluice, which would give me access to minerals such as iron and copper. But in order to craft a sluice, I needed logs, which meant that I have to go out in search of dirt to plant my saplings on. Again, I ventured out, breaking barrel after barrel in search of dirt. But no matter how many rafts I looted, there was none to be found. That was when I remembered that the mushroom island I found earlier had mycelium, which I could break to get dirt. I quickly got what I needed and started heading back home. While I was getting back to base, however, I got notified of an incoming airdrop? Who sent this here? Did they know I was stranded? Could I be saved and go home? My mind was raced with questions, none of which I would get answers to. I located the airdrop and found a variety of tools to aid me in my journey, most notably a diamond stick and amphibian boots. I quickly dismantled the rest of the airdrop and went back to base to store everything. With the dirt I collected, I planted the saplings I had and danced them into trees. Don't ask me how it works, I don't understand it either. And with the wood that I now have, I crafted myself a dripper to convert dirt into clay and finally made my first sluice. I hammered my first cobblestone into gravel and tried placing it into the sluice, but it didn't work and I didn't really know what I was doing. After a bit more tinkering, I realized that I needed to place a cloth mesh inside of the sluice before putting in the gravel and watched as I sluiced my first chunks of ore. I continued sluicing until I had enough iron chunks to craft an ingot, and with some spare materials I found, I managed to fix my ship's compass. This gave me access to a digital map which I could use to navigate and prevent me from getting lost. All these successes aside, it was incredibly slow to process iron with the ore chunks, and I wanted to find a more efficient way to create iron. I made myself a campfire and placed an ingot onto it, creating a cast iron ingot. I then collected some sand, smelted it into glass, and finally into tempered glass. I combined it all together and finally made a tempered glass jar. With this jar, I was able to create iron using only 4 ore chunks instead of 9. And not only that, I could now also make lava by putting cobblestone into the jar and used it to craft a cobblestone generator. With so much progress being made, it was time to truly settle in and build my base. Since I didn't have many blocks to work with, I started by building a perimeter around the crash site with cobblestone, then I expanded the platform with bordered cobblestone that kind of looked like floor grills, and finally fenced it with pillars. It definitely doesn't look the prettiest, but hey, I'm stranded on an unknown planet, I'll work with what I get. One more thing though, I expanded another platform to give myself somewhere to work, and this is the final result. I started moving all of my equipment over and decided to work towards improving my setup. I upgraded my sluice from wood to iron and did the same for my cloth mesh. I then created my first hopper to start work on automation. It's a pretty simple setup for now, but can be improved later. I decided to add a second sluice and created a water pump to automatically pump water into the sluice. With the new resources I was now collecting, I upgraded my iron mesh to gold before another airdrop decided to land. I quickly looted the airdrop and decided to take a bit of a break from base building. I went around exploring my surroundings yet again and discovered a strange temple in the distance. It was strange seeing another man-made structure, and I was curious to who built it and why. So without further thought, I went straight towards it to see what was in store. Inside was dark and I could barely see anything. I took a few steps into the room and immediately found a spawner. Whoever built this definitely did not want me in here. I climbed up the stairs to the second floor, which was mostly empty. The third floor, however, wasn't. Almost immediately, an evoker spawned and started attacking me, summoning vexes and dealing massive amounts of damage. The evoker itself was pretty easy to kill, but the vexes were a nightmare. They were super difficult to deal with and chased me non-stop. Thankfully, they started to despawn after a few minutes and I was safe once again. Never mind, there's another evoker here. With most of the dangers gone, I could finally relax and focus on the loot. Sadly, there really wasn't much here, and I still kept getting bit by those stupid vexes. I decided to head back home before anything worse happened, but still couldn't shake the feeling of curiosity. Who built this here and what was its purpose? Why is it so heavily guarded? I started heading back to base yet again with many questions unanswered. After coming back and sorting out my stuff, it was time to do a little bit more work. I started sluicing dust to get redstone and nickel. With it, I managed to craft a pipe wrench, item pipes, and fluid pipes, marking the next steps towards automation. I started tinkering around with the setup and ended up with this system. I also got myself a jar automator, which allowed the jar to work automatically without needing me to mix every few seconds. Next up on my list was storage. I wanted to set up a storage system to put all my items in, but one of the materials I was supposed to get was glowstone, which I did not have access to yet. So instead, I focused on small simple upgrades like this compacting drawer that automatically compacts cobblestone into its compressed variants. Then I decided to work on building a farm. Not only will that give me a reliable food source, I could also plant hemp seeds for string. I started out by building another platform and hollowing out the floor. I added some bricks to serve as paths and finally dirt for where the crops will go. I tilled the dirt and planted some seeds and finished my very own farm. With that, it was time to go exploring again. This time, I needed kelp in order to make a diving suit. So I made myself a backpack for extra inventory space and set off in search of kelp. While exploring, I found a lot of interesting things, such as this gun and another gun. Why are there so many guns? I wasn't really getting much luck with the barrel drops, and I was about to head home before I noticed a floating bit of land under the ocean with kelp on it. It wasn't too deep and I could comfortably swim down and grab all the kelp that I needed. I went back home, smelted all of my kelp, and made my full diving suit. Although I was afraid to test it out as I needed pressurized air bottles to help me breathe underwater, and I only had 4 bottles of it. Not wanting to softlock myself, I instead focused on the next part of my journey, the nether. In order to make my storage system and to get more pressurized air bottles, I would have to go to venture into the nether for its resources. This meant gathering obsidian and upgrading my current set of armor. I started making loads of cast iron ingots and made a temporary platform and blew them up. This created a new type of material called compressed iron, and I used it to make a new set of armor. I also wanted to make diamond tools, but I had a small lack of diamonds, so I got back to sluicing and also made an iron auto hammer, which allowed me to hammer cobblestone automatically and at a much faster rate. I used some obsidian to make an enchanting table and enchanted all of my armor to give myself a little more security. Now I felt ready to face the nether. But there was one thing stopping me. In order to even enter the nether, I needed to find a soul lantern to protect my soul for safe passage through the portal. But without soul sand or soul soil, I couldn't think of any other way of making it without already being in the nether in the first place. Maybe I was missing something here. I decided to take a walk, or well, a paddle, to maybe find some soul sand and just take a break from all that crafting. Eventually, I stumbled into yet another one of these temples and noticed soul lanterns. They were just here all along, waiting to be picked up. Then again, this also meant that whoever built these structures know about the nether, and might have even been there. If that was really the case, I need to find out who they were, and maybe, just maybe, they could help me get back home. In any case, I got what I needed and headed back to base. I completed my prep by making an obsidian boat to traverse lava and diamond tools, which I combined to create the diamond all-in-one tool. Finally, I built a platform for the portal and got myself ready to enter the nether.